So first we'll review the regular business meeting. We have Melvin who's going to give the invocation. Anyone want to do the pledge?
I'll do it. You want to do it? Sure.
Dave will lead us in the pledge.
I've never done it.
We've
So
got-
I'll do it next time. I did it this morning.
We've got the minutes to approve.
I did it this morning.
And then we skip all the way down to new business. We have the budget amendment, which we've determined. Are you going to be able to fix those numbers, or do we need to postpone?
I'd like to correct those numbers. And I apologize if it was not disseminated the way that it should have been. We'll make sure that gets taken care of and addressed.
Yeah, it's just, we discussed that at a previous meeting, that we have to have access to all the information, and...
Well, because it was so thick, that's why I handed hard copies, but it should have gone out with the agenda pack.
Well, and my problem is the cover sheet should have at least been in the agenda packet, saying, hey, dummy, I handed these out. Because it is useful to have the paper copy. But really my issue is, particularly the way things have been going politically, we need to make sure that everything we do is as open and transparent as possible, and particularly budget numbers. And I know it's just justifying last year's budget.
Yeah, it's just a
Once I figured that out, because it was, I just like left off the year on the 20. I just want to make sure it's out there. So if somebody, we all know nobody's going to look at it, more than likely.
Except the people who do.
Except for the people who do. But to the people who are going to look at it, it's very important. And it makes us look like we're trying to pull something over on somebody if it's not out there publicly.
Okay. And those numbers, we need to correct, there was a mistake with some transposed numbers, black to red in the hotel motel tax. I'd rather correct that and give everybody a correct sheet.
Yeah, the hotel motel tax page that's in there just had the numbers entered as negative instead of positive, so it threw the math off.
So
the
what are we
budget.
doing?
So we're going to postpone this to November 23rd,
Can do that.
the next meeting.
Now, item C is not on the printed one.
On the
Agenda, so I don't know what's,
printed agenda?
it's on the electronic.
What copy are you looking at?
It's laying on the desk.
All right, well, we'll check that on the way out. The next item on the agenda is nominating and hopefully confirming Melvin to the Tourism and Trade Association. This
I
will
guess
be-
he qualifies.
I don't know, we need to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, I can open it up if anybody wants to make a comment.
Who? I don't think I've ever heard of the man.
Or seen him.
He used to be a council member a long time
A
ago.
long time ago.
Okay, and then item C, the Town Center Market and Development lease. I'm going to ask for a motion to postpone this, to table it till the next meeting, not a date certain. I talked with Tony this morning, I talked with Butch, and he's talked with Kirk. We had some tremendous movement today, and on all of the agreements falling into place. And we have some, I don't know if we'll discuss it tonight, but we got information from MidCast on the master development and master developer position. So we're almost done now. We're really close on the parking deck declaration. knowing if we're gonna go in the direction of the master developer with MidCast, it'll bring together that joint development agreement pretty quickly. Because they already had a good draft of that with, but still needing to change all that language and negotiating that stuff. So we're a lot closer on a lot of the big agreements. And we just, in talking with Tony, and he raised the point on Thursday, and Todd also kind of chimed in on that too, about if we just hold off on this just maybe another week or so till we make sure we have all the other agreements. They don't have to be necessarily approval ready, but we'll have all of the big major pieces of those agreements all in alignment and just working out the final details. And then we could do a specially called meeting and pass this market agreement. But that way we still kind of keep this on the burner as we work through these last couple of big issues. But with where we are on everything, I feel really good that we could get through these other agreements fairly quickly, just depending on the attorney's time on drafting language and drafts and things. Now, we may wind up having another specially called meeting for us to be able to, once we get that joint development agreement, because that's going to be the next big one that we really haven't gone through a lot of fine points on. But hopefully that won't run as long as last Thursday's did. So just wanted to get y'all's feelings on that. I mean, it's up for
Did you
discussion.
say you're going to table it or postpone it?
Postpone
Or
to the 23rd.
No.
No, not a date
Postpone
certain,
it.
just,
Not a date
we're
certain.
just going to table till the next meeting, because the next meeting could be a specially called meeting.
Table to the next
Is
meeting.
that cool, Chuck? That's cool. Okay.
Before we do that, can we
Yes.
talk about the one
Yes.
change? If everybody will go to page 12 in the document.
Now, is this the same as the one that Schwartz sent us this afternoon?
This is the one change that Josh Schwartz made to hopefully better define what we will and will not pay for.
It comes to that tenant improvements, Todd, where you brought up, we don't want to pay the 4% on the tenant improvements.
And I made it clear made our discussion clear to Kirk. And he, coming from the private sector, is used to including what is called tenant improvements in a lease. And I said, I don't want that to mislead anybody. We want to be very clear about what we're paying for. And we talked about the building, walls, the mechanical part of it, and anything over that, like marble floors or granite countertops, that is not going to be included in that 4%. So this is the language that he sent back, and I'd like everybody to look at the bottom of probably the last sentence of section 2.8, where they talk about hard construction costs, mean the amount paid to any contractor, subcontractor, architect, materialman, supplier, laborer, or other vendor or person in connection with the installation or construction of interior and exterior physical improvements constructed or paid for by the owner at the market center, such as mechanical, electrical, plumbing, life safety, demising walls, and other base building improvements, provided that such terms shall not include fees paid to interior designers, attorneys, low voltage, furniture, fixtures, equipment, signage, security, audiovisual, and art consultants. And I felt like with this language, and we're going to be involved in approving the language in any lease. So we'll be able to, if there are tenant improvements, you'll have control over those. Exactly what is and is not considered a tenant improvement. So, the base building and these items, that's what I expected to bid, to design, bid, and build. And, but it's important, this is the last item that we have to have mayor and council agreement on before we move forward with this document. It will be ready with this language, once this language is approved. So everything else outside of the dates changing from, October to November, everything else is the same. So.
If the architect says Persian marble floors or whatever, then that's included in the base. That's my only issue, because this is a design build specifically for this tenant, and they will be involved in the actual building design. They are already miles ahead.
What
I guess
if, could we do it like you would, say, a track house? That we're gonna build this, and we'll give you an allowance for flooring for this, an allowance for whatever, light fixtures for this, and if he spends more than that, then that's tenant improvement.
When you build a commercial space, there are walls, there's a concrete floor, there's HVAC, maybe not. So ceiling, floor finishes, it's very different than a tract home,
Yeah.
typically. But, it's something we can work out. Probably, this is vague enough that maybe we can work it out in a bit.
Well, I'm thinking that a lot of that is going to be worked out in the lease negotiations. I mean, if he wants us to put something in, then, it needs to be, his rent needs to be adjusted. I mean, it gives you that flexibility. And in my mind, there are several pieces. I'm just trying to get us to a document that you feel comfortable with.
Well, and you know what, if we think about what we're doing here, this is the document that says what the 4% is due on, right? It's the fees
Yeah.
part. And it does say that it's installation or construction of interior and exterior physical improvements constructed or paid for by the owner. So if we decide we're not paying for something, then the 4% doesn't apply,
Correct.
right? So this isn't, we're not really making our decisions on what we're paying for and what we're not paying for at this point. We're just saying that if it's not part of what we're paying for, then we're not paying you a 4% development fee on it.
Right.
Well, and realistically, since this is being designed and built for a specific tenant, our lease amount, the amount he pays us, will be based on whatever our cost is, I would imagine. So, yeah, you could look at it as if he goes an extra $100,000 for the flooring, his rent's just going to be higher. Now, the only risk to us would be the fact that if he were to fail, which I don't think he could, we would own a more deluxe floor than, say, if we were having mom and pop's burger joint here or something. So,
Well,
we're probably okay. It's a little,
I don't think it's clear enough where it states that we're not going to pay the 4%.
States that we're not going to pay the 4% on what?
That's what 2.8 is all about. Is we're not going to pay the 4% on.
no, it says we're going to pay 4% of the approved hard construction costs that we're going to pay for.
Right.
So you don't need to say that we're not paying for anything that's not an approved hard cost, because we're not.
right.
I mean, the mayor and council is going to approve the design, which will be what goes out to bid. And before that, you're also going to have an approving role when it comes to the lease, like Todd mentioned. So I think that gives us the ability to control how much we're paying, what we're paying that 4% on. If Dave, if we sat here and we tried to list everything out.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just,
Yeah, I don't think we'd get there.
I'm just trying to see if there's loopholes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know there are.
Always.
Right, Chuck?
Always.
So, the way this is going to work is we have to approve his lease and the amount before we get a bid on the building? Because that's going to be an issue.
No.
Okay, just the way he just said it, it scared me. Butch?
Well, the timing is, obviously, he's interested in, and we're interested in tying it down.
Right.
And in that lease, you know, if he says, well, I would like tenant improvements of blah, 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 and we say, you know, no, this is what we're gonna get. This is what we're willing to give. And then we're gonna take that, and the architect's gonna design that building, and then we're gonna bid it and build it.
Gotcha.
So I'm just saying, you've got other places where you have control. So that's the way I'm envisioning it.
Yeah. No, my concern was approved. It doesn't say approved by who. And that would seem to be obvious, but again,
It probably says it earlier on.
okay.
Owner shall pay agent development fees equivalent to 4% of the approved hard construction costs
Approved by whom?
Chuck, do you know where it says?
for any buildings or other site improvements constructed by owner at the market center. I mean, we're not going to construct it if we haven't approved it.
Hopefully. All right.
Really? Some internal-
If you feel that's-
I mean, it wouldn't be much to put city council
Well, that's
approval.
what I'm thinking. That way it just eliminates anything down the road where, well, we thought if we
Well,
approved.
That's not where the rub's going to be.
Well,
Yeah.
The rub's going to come in these little vague details. But that is something that we need to think about too. If we're building a specialty building specifically for a contract, or for a specific. One tenant. I think we need to consider what happens if he doesn't survive.
Yeah, we do.
We're going to have this specialty building with a lot of kitchen space. You know, and we still need to make sure that in the design and the construction, that it can be modified to other purposes if this doesn't work.
We need to pay for a shell, for basic mechanical services and landscape improvements and bathrooms and interiors.
One of the issues, we were talking about this
And
earlier,
those should be stubbed out bathrooms, not complete bathrooms.
when we've got a client that's had a similar situation. So they had gone into a building and made improvements to that building by exhaust vents from their big grills and their walk-in coolers. They had to cut a hole and things like that. And now they want to take their walk-in coolers with them. They want to take their big grills with them. And the owner of the building's like, hey, hang on, you've left a huge hole, you know, inside the building. You've modified it. So those are valid concerns that you're bringing up, Mayor, because, you know, we don't want to have 11 holes in the side of a wall for 11 kitchen vents, and then he moves out.
And you got grease trap,
Yeah.
you know, that's going to have to be put in,
Yeah.
No, but,
one or several.
yeah, but that's, as long as another food establishment were to go in there, that would transfer over. The way they're done now is,
Yeah.
if you've ever gone by
House.
former
Halcyon.
Councilman Marmel's place, it's very different than when we were kids. So,
But I think we need to be considering that, and I think some of that goes in the lease. You know, what the tenant's
Well, you
allowed
need
to
to put it
do.
out on the table and, you know, talking with Jamal,
Yeah,
because we don't have a lease yet.
right,
And, you know, it's all in the negotiations.
yeah.
Everybody likes Jamal and what he's bringing. it's, you've got to decide where that, how bad you want them.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think it's just something we need to be considering because there is no guarantee.
we should really step back and take Jamal out of the picture and say, if we were going to build this building for tenant X, what would we provide? And we would provide a architecturally designed exterior, interior finishes to probably a very minimal, if at all, and that's it. And land, the rest would be handled only through allowances. We would not be paying for flooring finishes or anything else.
This language pretty much, I mean, we're talking about a base,
Yeah.
base building improvements.
Right, well,
So we have, since we're going to just postpone this
no.
for another
that's
week
true.
or so, we've got a little time to kind of think through a little bit of this.
But this is the last item,
This is it.
and everything's done, then you can adopt it when you're ready.
So it'd be good too if everybody just took a little time, read through the whole thing again, make sure nothing else pops out.
So from their standpoint, we're good with this, they're good with this as it stands?
What's that?
They're good with this if we're good with this?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's, after my conversation with Kirk this morning,
Okay.
that's what they sent back. And I think it's very close to what you're describing.
Yeah, I just need to speak with it a night or two.
Well, we'll give you that.
I'll leave it in my car and then call Butch up Saturday and say, Butch, why didn't you send me a copy of that?
Send it in an email to everyone.
Yeah, that.
Rather enjoy that.
Well, I didn't want us all to have to ask the same stupid question and get it one and get it done.
Even though nobody else had that question.
You know you did. You know you did.
I knew I had it.
Oh,
I knew where it was.
Okay, so that's it for the regular meeting, so let's move back to the work session agenda. Any correspondence?
No, there's not. There's that one item, the extension,
Yes.
which I'm not sure when you want to still bring that up.
Yeah, well, we can bring it up now. We do have, I think it was asked at the last meeting, will there be another? And there is the 8th Amendment
Oh, Jesus, Mary
Extension.
Joseph.
to the Design Master Development Agreement. And this gets us past the November 16th date. And this new date is for, so if someone will need to add this to the agenda.
Should this be new business or old?
This should be old business, shouldn't it?
Seems like it.
It's a new amendment.
Eighth Amendment.
All right, new business.
New business.
Item D.
Cruel and unusual punishment.
Item D.
Yep.
You gonna take care of this?
I
Mayor
can.
Pro Tem?
I can do
You
that.
got the date, you get the,
And this will be the 8th and final. Maybe you shouldn't say that.
As
though.
opposed to the 7th and final.
That's what the Rocky version said. Rocky 17.
well, it's the last eighth one we'll have.
But everything is coming together now, so I feel much better about everything. Okay. So we've got that. Any other correspondence?
No, ma'am.
City Attorney's report?
In the executive session, Mayor.
Okay. Ongoing projects?
We can go over these kind of quickly. The town center has taken so much time up. But I thought that was a great work session last Thursday. I think we provided good updates and guidance on all of the documents. And remember, that's the market agreement here, the master declaration for the Grove, the parking declaration, which should be done. You guys approved all of their requests. They're updating that. And then we're on to the joint development agreement. So 4 documents. 2 are basically done. The master deck is very close. And then once we input the master developer language, we'll be good with the JDA and let that get drafted. Holding off, once again, we did receive our first check from the county on our CARES Act submittal. It was for the initial $57,000. We don't have the big check yet, but we certainly expect it in the next couple weeks. The UDO, done. Commercial property code enforcement annexation, we'll be back on annexation before you know it next year. And if there are any issues out there that you see, please let us know. The GDOT under miscellaneous is going to take care of the historic oak. They aren't doing anything until we have a meeting and can clarify and make sure that it gets handled right and basically the story goes out properly to the public about it being GDOT. Brian will be in that meeting and we'll make sure that gets handled right. And I know you all saw the information about the great award that our police department received from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. It's never been done before. 2 years in a row the governor's got it. These guys deserve all the applause and credit we can give them because they've really worked hard. It's the reason why we got the heat grant. Sure. Thank you. Going back, you've also got the town center progress update. We've talked, Thursday handled so many of these issues. There's not a whole lot more to update you regarding. I will tell you that in my conversations with Kirk today, he is working on a list of questions, and it really surrounds just a couple of the items regarding the stormwater and then how we get the Grove back, which will be in both the JDA and the master declaration for the Grove. When he gets those questions back, we're going to put a group together so we can answer those and we can move on with those documents. But I think they believe that we made as much progress as we believe we did Thursday. So you can look through here if you have any questions, but really we did get an update from Gwinnett Water on the sewer project. It went up slightly. It does include, that's the very last item on the 3rd page. They are going to make water improvements there, and they also have plans they're looking at plans for future sanitary sewer and water extensions in that area, in the whole Eastwood, Pinehurst area. So it might be a little different than a 75-25, but right now we're paying for 25% of the improvements, but we'll be able to negotiate that. So we just, once we get this bid, then they want us to take a look at their plans and see what we could accomplish in the future. So sanitary sewer, I don't have to tell you guys, could lead to a lot of great improvement and redevelopment. So, but that's about all I have.
Okay. It's the ongoing projects. Then the town center documents, we pretty much
Kind
covered
of went over those.
what we need. Anybody else have any questions or anything?
The issues over at, the ongoing issues over at the shopping center, do you want to handle those in executive session, or should we talk about that now, as far as the potential for cameras and such?
Yeah, I don't think that can be exec session.
Oh, well, good.
Whisper to Chuck and see what you want to talk about.
There's potential for lawsuit in dealing with how that's handled, and I think,
I don't
okay.
think that's going to get us there.
Okay. Well, the issue that I see, the proposal that came across last week was that the owner, I guess, procure cameras and put them on the property, and then we will be tasked with maintaining vigilance on, I guess our police will spend their time looking at the screens to see if anybody comes in and violates that. And I have an issue with that because from day one, this has been an issue with conditions of zoning on a property, and that goes to the owners of the property. If I have a business in my house under our current ordinance, I'm allowed to have, Jason's not here, 4 or 6 people a day come to my house. If I have 200 people come to my day at all hours of the day, the police would never, code enforcement would never ticket those people or pull them over or enforce it that way. They would go to the property owner. Yet on this commercial property that we have for years been trying to solve it by going after the leasees and the delivery people who come, and in some instances, quasi-customers that come onto the property. And that's fine and well, but that is not how it should be handled, because it is a condition of zoning. And in the emails that came out, it was stated that if there are further problems, we will go after the owner. The owner needs to be tagged every time there's a violation, because the owner is not going to step up to the plate and take care of the issue after 20 years unless they are on the ticket every single time. And quite frankly, if we are going to monitor security cameras, or even if they're flock cameras, on that property, then we're going to have to do it on every commercial property in the city, and that is not viable. I love the police, but I don't think we can increase their budget enough to maintain or properly man the security cameras. I proposed over a year ago that the owner be directed to put gates up that close at a certain time. That would alleviate the problem behind the buildings. I don't know if that's viable. I think I remember that even I came up with an idea why that couldn't happen because of fire safety and life safety issues. But I have an issue with the direction that we're heading. We've made great progress. We need to continue to push to make great progress. I just don't think we need to be encumbered any more than we already have been in trying to solve an owner's problem with the conditions of zoning. And then also, if we are going to rezone the conditions on this property, that puts us in a very, very sketchy position, because it sounds as though that was requested by us to make them to comply with what our current noise ordinance is, bring them into the same as every other shopping center in the city. Well, I would have a problem with us instigating a change in zoning conditions on a property that we've had a problem with for over 20 years. Because it's not a hardship that is unknown to them. It was known to them before they turned the first shovel of dirt. So I would have a serious problem with us bringing forth a change in zoning and conditions. Did I forget anything? Did I get enough? Everybody got it?
Well, myself and Jason and Roy, we're just looking at a way to better solve this problem, to better be able to control the situation, which is better for the citizenry, And also, in the long run, better for those businesses. I mean, we have businesses look at the city as being a helper rather than, somebody who, over-enforces and, hurts their businesses. The owner, I mean, we have, the owner's been to court. It's not like we haven't tried to influence them through enforcement. But it's just like if an officer gets called back there and he's got he wasn't supposed to be there. He's supposed to be there at 9 o'clock and he shows up at 5 o'clock, that's who we need to go after. But we're just looking at a better way to solve this for everybody. And I mean, it's just, like you said, it's a proposal. It's an option.
I understand, but again, that puts it back on us.
Yeah.
And this is a owner's problem. They agreed to those conditions of zoning, and.
But wouldn't you agree that 5 o'clock in the afternoon is unrealistic?
But that's not when we're having the trouble.
Well,
last two-
it cuts down the number of hours they can deliver.
Who?
The last two
The
calls?
last two of them were the trucks arrived. One of them was there, they actually showed up a little bit before 8 o'clock. And, they were supposed to be there at 5, and they couldn't get there in time for whatever reason. There were two like that, where they had every intention of being there by 5, they just didn't make it. So what's the truck gonna do? Whereas he's got to sit for the next 12 hours or 14 hours till they can open back up. So that becomes a problem. That was one of the reasons we thought the store is open, those trucks are gonna make just as much noise if they just went shopping in the shopping center as they would going back there. And, it's just not reasonable.
Well, I mean, personally, I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't have an issue, depending on how we have to change it, to extend the hours a little bit later to the evening. But, I mean, I think Todd makes a really good point that
Well, let
this
them
is,
apply for it.
this
They can
isn't,
apply for rezoning.
Yeah.
this is an owner issue,
Proactive.
and, I mean, we're doing what we need to do to try to get the enforcement side of things, but unless we park a police officer there or monitor a camera, which I agree too, that's providing public resources on private property. I don't know that that's the proper use of
They buy the
taxpayers'
camera.
money.
Why can't?
Yeah, but we're using our personnel to monitor
Why
it.
can't they hire a security person at their dime to keep people off their property?
Or put up cameras and allow a monitoring company to watch it.
I mean, and we just don't need to be the instigators in any change in conditions as elected officials. That's the last thing we need. If the owner wants to come forth and request something, that's absolutely up to them. And I think
I'm just looking for a.
I think they could make a very good argument that the conditions might be overburdensome, but it certainly can never be the elected officials that are party to, hey, let's rezone that because we don't think that's fair. With everything that's going on over the last couple of years, we can't be tied into that.
Well, it's up to you guys. I mean, we're just looking for a reasonable compromise with a business owner that, I mean, let's face it, retail is going to change a lot over the coming years.
But even if even if we went in tomorrow and said, okay, your trucks can be back there up till 8 p.m., that still doesn't eliminate, what does that do for them to stop the 4 a.m.s and the 2:30 a.m., I mean, that gives them a little more leeway in the evening, but it doesn't stop what the main issue is the 10 to 5 a.m.
But
stuff.
like one of them we had, the truck paperwork, the bill of lading said they were to deliver at 9 a.m. The truck showed up at 6:20
6:20 a.m.
a.m. So I don't believe it's reasonable to charge the store nor the property owner in a case where they had specific instructions to show up in accordance to the conditions of zoning, and the trucking company took it on itself to deliver outside that window. The other thing about the cameras is that some of the calls we're getting, like the last one we got from a relatively new complainant, who said that there was, the dumpsters were being done. But we checked the GPS on the trash trucks, nothing was delivered back there. Officers got there within 2 minutes. There was nobody in the shopping center. There was nobody around the shopping center at all. So with a camera, we might have been able to determine did something really occur. But without it, you know,
Well, they
it's
could put a
pretty
camera in and
But they could have the
store
camera
the
as
tape,
well.
yeah, store the tape or store the video, and that way, because that's the other part of the problem, is people complaining about things that don't happen. And that should be, again, you know, on whoever does it, it's easy enough to solve. You put a camera up there and it's their property, they should be the one to monitor.
All right, well, I think you bring up some really good points, Todd, so let's kind of digest all of that and continue to work with Butch and Chief on,
We put it on the next work session.
yeah.
Have you talked to the shopping center owner at all?
Mhm.
Okay. And what?
And just to tell them, you know, this is one thing that we're going to put out there, and, you know, I wanted to see what they had to say. And they were, you know, they were excited about it. I said, we'll make that investment. But that's just part of it. That's just one part of it. There's a lot of parties involved there.
Okay. We need an exec session at 7:15. Do we have time?
I think so.
All right.
During,
Where did my paperwork go?
Sorry? Nope, no.
During the work session of the Mayor and City Council of Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Bender announced that certain matters should be disclosed in a closed